Yeah, listen, there are a lot of issues that we can talk about, like border security, health care, the economy, but this is a Christian Chamber of Commerce, right? And for many years, I would say almost decades, the faithless liberals have been bashing the Christian community in this country, right? And putting us all down in a whole bunch of different aspects. And unfortunately, many of us have kind of been bowed by that, right? Have been forced to go underground or, kind of go to the closet and be silent while these people are dictating this reformation of America. Why is this election important for people to come and participate?
Yeah, that's a great question. What I say, I'll start with two things. The saying goes, and you guys have all heard it, that evil triumphs when good men, always have women, do nothing. And the second thing I always share, and I wholeheartedly believe, is that at some point, David had to get off his knees from praying and pick up a rock and a sling to take down Goliath. And the problem that we have as Christians is that we're kind. We're kind-hearted. We love our country. We love our community. We love our families. We want a good economy. We want good for everybody. But at some point, we've got to fight for our freedoms. We've got to stand up for our religions. We've got to stand up for our families. We've got to stand up for our values and say enough is enough. I mean, Jesus walked into the temple and overturned the table. I sleep very peacefully at night, sharing my faith, my love of God, my love of country, and why I want America to be the greatest country that my 8 children can grow up to be. I sleep very peacefully at night. So, I don't know if I answered your question, but I think the reality is at some point, we've got to fight. We have got to fight to know that it is okay to accept God, that God created this country. And that's the biggest thing, and I'll share at the end of it, but that's the biggest thing for me I've learned is there are hundreds and thousands of people that love God, that love this country, and I've met many of them. Many of them have the same faith, the same value you guys do, of loving this great country and fighting for it. Because we know we're under attack right now.
But you got to vote.
Gotta vote. You gotta vote.
Eric, you're sitting there with that look on your face that you're either processing and accepting it all, but Eric Weisgarber, with it?
Howard, do you have your hand
I'll
up?
get to Howard, but I want to pick on Eric. Eric, stand up. He's the one that asked the question about enforcement. He is one of the most significant donors to Texas Values, a nonprofit that is active in the Texas legislature, and which has a ripple effect across all. Any questions?
I echo what you're saying, and I get kind of privileged insight to some of the racism and politics that's going on out here. If we can get 1 or 2 of our neighbors, people we go to church with, or our kids and grandkids swim team, to show up whose values already align with us, we win. It's passivity. Somebody else will take care of it, or we come to the table thinking, if we can't do every single thing I want, every single point, forget about it. And we don't cast that conservative vote. So we have to show up and win. We are having our Texas Values Forum in Austin Friday and Saturday. We're going to have a slate of 50 major speakers. If anybody wants to make that, it's super powerful. But yeah, just get up and get involved. I know when we ask for witnesses on congressional testimony, we'll coach people. If you have a strength in something you'd like to speak, we'll cue you up. Here's people that have for us, against us, here to sway makers. But that phone call to a representative or one of their officers who's sending an email, it has impact. So you don't have to run for office. So a saving encouragement, I'm speaking to the choir here. So your brothers and your cousins, those are the ones we just need to push say this is important. Carrie Lyson won her race by 217 votes. And in some of these contested areas, it's going to be close, so it will make a difference. So I thank you for pointing me out. I'm just a guy maybe.
No.
I'm beyond my pay grade, but it's time to show up and be in the fight and take action.
I'm purposeful in pointing out some of Monica, right? Okay, and Fred, he's a former financial planner. Oh yeah, take it out. Yeah, and he did enough that while he's no Rockefeller, he got to the point where he could retire from financial planning and give back. So I'm going to brag about him because maybe he's a little less defensive than Seth is. But I mean, this gentleman is putting his money where his mouth is, putting his energies. Even though he's got grandchildren, he's in good health, he loves to ski, but he's out there. And I appreciate you allowing me to share that because this lady and that man, and there's maybe some other financial planners in the room, but you know, your career today affects your capacity tomorrow. And you're not speaking to the choir, you're speaking ideally through the choir. Everybody here could walk away from here and at least tell everybody, what did you do for lunch today? I don't know how to describe it, but it was kind of interesting. And if you want to jump on his bandwagon, go for it. If you want to jump on Seth's bandwagon, go for it. You know, I'd like you to jump on Kyle's bandwagon because it's a bigger wagon. It really is big. Joshua Initiative, Joe Cadell over there has been patient while he's got his head on his hand because he leads that faith-based conversation into the churches. And he and I work together to call out the candidates to say, great, we got you right here. So besides his wife, she's a witness. If he gets elected, as we pray for God's will in that result, well, we've got it. We can hold him accountable so that we're not listening to somebody tell us the same story 10 years from now about his brain. Okay? So hopefully that gives you Joshua Initiative. Joe, briefly, what are you doing? I mean, because I know you are reaching out through the Baptists and among the what? How many? Just throw out some numbers.
Okay, I'll be brief. We have 860,000 emails in Clark County that we're fixing to turn loose to a specific number of candidates. I'll see clarity one of them.
Thank you, sir.
And this, Kyle didn't recruit him. He's looking for people to support this effort to get the faith-based community involved in these elections.
Well, and I'll add, so I've met with Joe and was interviewed by him and grateful for that. And faith is a big part of it. We created Pastors for Kyle, another group that again, you don't see that. You don't see that in government. You don't see it in Congress. You don't see it in San Antonio. I go to many churches. I went to the Baptist. I've gone to Lutheran. I've gone to several churches, speaking with the congregation, praying with the congregation, getting prayed to and for my family, because it's tough. It is very grueling to run for race. But so I appreciate all the support from the pastors and Joe and the religious leaders in San Antonio. We have phenomenal religious pastors and leaders in San Antonio.
So Kyle's going to stay around. Oh, Howard, you have a question? Please. No.
I would like to point out that you were in the service before we.
Yes, Army.
You probably know that when you're out fighting, the average serviceman out in the front lines has at least 16 people behind them. Didn't even prepare to go out in the front lines. The guy who provides all the weapons, the materials, the cooks, whatever they are. So, that guy's fighting. He's not alone. He's got 16 other guys, or how many ever it is now, to support him. So there's a guy who's a fighter, and then there's a guy who supports the fighter. Now, we may not be real fighters. If you're running for Congress, so you're obviously out there on the front lines. If you're not a fighter, support the fighters, whether it's Kyle or somebody else. Be a supporter. And the third person, the kind of person we have, even in the Christian community, is the do-nothingers. They don't. Pew Research said that a few years ago, that half the evangelical Christians didn't even vote. Half. Most of our pastors don't even talk about this. So, we got a lot of work to do.
Yes, sir.
My name is Brandon Bradshaw. I'm president of the local community of San Antonio. We support Kyle very well. I'm just curious, Kyle, do you have any programs or ideas? Because the problem with a lot of churches that I've had research with is they're losing their faith in the country itself. They don't want to get involved because they don't want to be down with it. They're scared. And that's why as we move forward, we're losing our track with faith. And faith needs to be the way it was, very strong as we come together. My question to you guys was, is there any kind of source like he's talking about to bring people together, people that don't want to be in people, that don't want to talk, they want to hire, they want to be involved, to open their eyes, help them, get them involved?
Yeah, I mean, I think organizations like Joe and Texas Values also there's several organizations that do bring Christian groups or religious groups together, and to pastors themselves can change and not be afraid to speak from the pulpit and share truths and values that we hold, whether they're conservative or whether you're talking in general. But I think that's the reality where it's at. I mean, I went last week with Pastor Nino and went with several pastors and worshiped with them, and that's what you've got to do as elected officials, the people running. The value you place on it is where you're going to spend your time. And we've got to do that from elected officials all the way down to the state level. So I think it's continuing supporting these organizations that have the bread and butter, that have the connections, that have these groups together, and they meet here in San Antonio. We just oftentimes don't know about it. So
So we're fine.